Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back. Thank you so much for clicking on the video. Today we are going to be taking a deep dive into Elden Ring's legendary mage build. This build will give you the ability to overcome any obstacle that gets in your way using magic abilities, and trust me, it's effective even against the most dangerous of enemies. Quick shout out to our sponsor AOE.com. If you don't want to grind for items or runes and you want items real quick, use my code COLD for 3% off. If you choose to go down the path of the legendary battle mage, use this video to guide you there. The build you are seeing here focuses heavily on strength and intelligence. This combination in particular is going to make you very dangerous. Because strength is such an important attribute on this build, we are taking full advantage of the fingerprint shield, the best shield in Elden Ring. It is extremely reliable and it will allow you to block almost every single melee attack. Let me introduce you to the Royal Greatsword, one of the best magic weapons in Elden Ring. This Greatsword in particular was actually buffed in patch 1.04. The increase to the Wolf's Assault overall attack power and speed makes this an incredible option for an intelligent strength build. We also can't forget the incredible amounts of damage we can do with our spells, specifically our charge attacks. This build is top tier because it gives you incredible defense, incredible offense. Now ask yourself, will you choose the path of the legendary battle mage? I want to take a second and just thank you guys for all the support in the channel on my Elden Ring videos specifically. The support has been unreal and it's really nice to see the channel grow. None of that would have been possible without you guys, so thanks again. Now, in all of my videos, I like to show you guys what the attributes should look like at specific level brackets. For this example here, if you're somewhere around level 50, well then your attributes could look something like this. For Vigor, we have 30. Health is going to be extremely important in a game like this because the enemies do a lot of damage and you want to make sure you have as much survivability as possible. For Mind, we have 15. Endurance 15. We bumped up our strength to 25. Strength is going to be extremely important because it determines what type of shields we are going to be able to equip, and typically the higher our strength, the better the shield we can use. For example, the fingerprint shield that you saw in the gameplay footage. For dexterity, we have 16. For intelligence, we have 20. Again, this is primarily a strength and intelligence build. Faith at 8 and arcane at 9. Now, if you've progressed further into the game and you're somewhere in the level 100 range, keep in mind these attributes are not set in stone. Every starting class has different starting attributes. Around level 100 though, you could have Vigor at 50. Again, you want to make sure you get your HP as high as you possibly can. You also want to make some room for Mind. Mind is going to be extremely important when you're casting spells, and generally the more Mind you have, the better. But we prioritize survivability here, as you can see with the 50 HP. For endurance, we have 20. Typically your equipment load is going to increase and you want to make sure you can hold all of the items that you currently have. For strength, we have 30. Again, we increased our strength. Dexterity at 18. Intelligence at 30. Intelligence is one of our higher attributes as well. Faith at 8 and arcane at 9. At level 150, which is typically where most people like to stop leveling up, your attributes would look something similar to this here. For Vigor, we have 60, Mind at 25, Endurance 25. We bumped up our strength to 48 so we could wield the fingerprint shield. Like I said, the best, most defensive, most reliable shield in Elden Ring. Dexterity at 16, you can bump it up to 18 if you want to take advantage of a different type of weapon that requires a specific dexterity level. Intelligence at 50, one of our highest attributes. Obviously, intelligence and strength is going to be very, very important for this build. Faith at 8 and arcane at 9. For the weapons on the build, earlier I mentioned the Royal Greatsword, which is an incredible weapon to use for a strength and intelligence build similar to this one. My Royal Greatsword specifically is +9. I almost have it maxed out. You can see here our physical attack power is 258 plus 139. But check out that magic damage, 308 plus 204, and keep in mind this isn't even fully maxed out yet. This weapon has pretty good attribute scaling for strength and intelligence, which is what we're primarily focusing on. Also remember that in order to use this weapon, you need at least 26 strength 18 dexterity, and 22 intelligence. The Ash of War that is exclusive to the Royal Greatsword is called Wolf's Assault, a very high damage attack, a very quick attack, and it's very reliable in most situations. It causes a lot of stagger, and it has a pretty decent area of effect, as you can see here. Another great option for this build is actually the Dark Moon Greatsword, which I think is one of the top 3 intelligence weapons in Elden Ring. My Dark Moon Greatsword is plus 10, fully maxed out, 200 plus 106 physical attack power. Check out that magic damage, 240 plus 356 magic damage. For attribute scaling, it heavily favors intelligence, which is perfect for this build. Attributes required to wield this weapon: you need at least 16 strength, 11 dexterity, and 38 intelligence. Another added benefit to this weapon is it does cause frost buildup, and frost buildup is very good in this game because frost damage specifically is effective against most bosses in the game, most higher level enemies, and the heavy attack on this build actually gives you a little bit of range as well. The last weapon I'm going to recommend on this build, and honestly it's probably going to be the weapon that you're going to be using for most of your playthrough, at least until you get to endgame, just because it's so easy to obtain and you get it pretty early on in the game. The weapon I'm talking about is the MOONVEIL Katana, easily one of the best weapons in the game. I would say honestly probably top 3 weapons overall in Elden Ring. You can see here my MOONVEIL Katana is plus 10 for physical attack power, 178 plus 112. Magic damage 213 plus 221. You can see here for the attribute scaling, the MOONVEIL Katana in particular heavily favors dexterity over strength, but also keep in mind it still has very good intelligence scaling. To use this weapon, you only need 12 strength, 18 dexterity, and 23 intelligence. I fully stand by this weapon. I honestly think it's easily one of the best weapons in the game. It carried me through most of my first playthrough, and I think it's an amazing option. Now, as a sorcerer in Elden Ring, you are going to need a glintstone staff in order to cast your spells. Specifically for this build, I'm using LUSATS glintstone staff. Mine is fully maxed out, plus 10. And the main reason I recommend using this one, especially for endgame, is because this staff in particular actually enhances the power of all sorceries, but consumes additional focus. It's kind of like a high risk, high reward situation, but it's definitely worth it, especially with the COMET AZUR spell, which does tons of damage. LUSATS Glintstone Staff has 417 sorcery scaling at plus 10. Attribute scaling is S tier for intelligence and C for strength, which is perfect for this build. Also keep in mind though, this is an endgame staff, so you're gonna need at least 10 strength and 52 intelligence to use it. We are also taking full advantage of the fingerprint shield, which is a very valuable asset. What makes this shield even stronger though is the Scholar's Shield spell. The Scholar's Shield is going to make your fingerprint shield pretty much invulnerable to all kinds of damage. And we actually have a talisman on this build that increases the spell effect duration, and as long as we have this shield equipped, we can take full advantage of our spells and obviously our weapons. You can see here my fingerprint stone shield is plus 25, fully maxed out. Also, I do want to mention, if you ever get into a situation where you have a shield in your left hand and a weapon in your right hand and you can't use the weapon skill, it's because you need to add a specific Ash of War to your shield called the No Skill Ash of War. You do need at least 48 strength to equip this shield, but trust me, it is definitely worth it. Lots of damage negation here, 100 physical, 77 magic, 81 fire damage negation, lightning 79, holy 75. The guard boost overall is 90, and once we apply that Scholar's Shield spell, I believe it's going to bump it up to 99, which is going to make you pretty much invincible. For the apparel, I'm using the Traveler's Hat, the Sorcerer Robe, the Astrologer Gloves, and the Preceptor's Trousers. I think this outfit looks pretty cool, and I definitely feel like it fits the build. The next thing we're going to take a look at here is the talismans on the build, which is actually very important. For the first talisman here, we are using the Old Lord's Talisman, which extends spell effect duration. This works incredibly well for the Scholar's Shield spell that we already went over. It works very good with Terra Magica, which is a little area that you stand in that actually increases your overall spell damage. The next talisman I highly recommend is the Shard of Alexander, one of the best talismans to use in Elden Ring. This is going to greatly boost the attack power of skills. So if you're the type of battle mage that prefers melee combat and using your weapons more than your spells, this is going to be an amazing talisman to use. For example, your Wolf's Assault skill that's exclusive to the Royal Greatsword is going to do more damage. If you want to focus more on magic and spells, then there's a couple of other talismans that I recommend that you can put in place of the Shard of Alexander. The first one is Radagon's Icon, which shortens spellcasting time. This is also very good to have. You could also use Marika's Scar Seal, which raises attributes but also increases damage taken. This is going to increase your mind and intelligence overall, which is very good for a build like this. Also, if you want way more survivability on the build, you could also use the DRAGONCREST GREATSHIELD talisman, which enormously boosts physical damage negation. The third talisman I have on this build is Godfrey's Icon, which enhances charged spells and skills. This works extremely well for spells like COMET, AZUR. Pretty much any spell or skill that you have to charge before you attack, it's going to do more damage, and it's definitely noticeable. The last talisman on the build here, which I think is extremely important for any strength-based build, especially if you have a pretty heavy equipment load, is the Green Turtle Talisman, which is going to raise our stamina recovery speed. Unfortunately, when you do cast spells, you do use stamina, and the quicker we can get that stamina back, the better. The next thing I want to do is go through all of the spells that I'm using on this build. The first one here, Scholar's Shield, that we actually already went over, is one of the best for this build because it is going to increase the damage negation on our fingerprint shield. The next spell I went over briefly, but it's called Terra Magica. This spell creates a spherical zone, giving you a magic buff, increasing magic damage from any source by 35%, lasting 30 seconds. I use this spell a lot when I am trying to do lots of damage to a boss. For example, it pairs very well with the Comet AZUR. That additional 35% magic damage is insane. Next, we have the Carrion Greatsword, which I think is extremely underrated. It actually does a pretty decent amount of damage, and honestly, it causes a lot of stagger as well. It's going to do a lot of poise damage to your targets, and it's very reliable. We are also taking advantage of 3 different Comet spells. The first one being the Night Comet. Now, I have to give you guys a special shout out for reminding me about this spell. I forgot how good it was, especially against enemies that try to dodge your attacks. Now, typically with the regular Comet, you would shoot this at an enemy and they would dodge it. Well, with the Night Comet, they actually can't see it coming, which means you can land every single shot. We also have the regular Comet spell, which does a little bit more damage, and it's probably the most used spell on this build. And then the Comet AZUR, which is just incredible against bosses, does so much damage, and with the right tiers in your Wondrous Physic, you can actually one-phase almost every single boss in this game. Obviously, it's going to require the right timing and patience, but if you get it right, you are going to be extremely deadly. The very last thing I want to show you guys is my Wondrous Physic mix. So you can see here we have the Cerulean Hidden Tier and the Spiked Crack Tier. This is going to make your Comet AZUR spell incredibly powerful. The Cerulean Hidden Tier eliminates all FP consumption for 15 seconds. This is going to allow for those long Comet AZUR phases. Also, the Spiked Crack Tier is going to temporarily boost charged attack power, which is going to reflect on our Comet AZUR. That is the build, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video in any way, shape, or form, please leave a thumbs up. I would appreciate it a lot. It seriously helps the channel grow. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel to see more Elden Ring videos just like this one. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.